Now we're going to talk about something that's a little bit different outside the normal pocket that we may oftentimes think about doing access control and including electric strike, whether it's commercial, retail, industrial, whatever it is. But we're going to kind of take you outside to something a little bit different, sometimes a little bit more heavier duty. And with that, we're going to start out with Folger Atoms, because Folger Atoms has been around for a long time. Earlier I mentioned about the Folger Atom strike. It is most commonly recognized by the fact that it has an external solenoid to it. The good part is those external solenoids can oftentimes be replaced in the field. So if they go bad, you can go to a new one and get it replaced in the field, but they're heavy duty. These are heavy duty products. These things if you want to throw a dead weight at somebody, this is the kind of thing you could take and throw at somebody, because it is a heavy dead weight. But it has its fits, it has its applications, and a lot of times we're going to look at, what type of situation are we going to be using them in. Places where we're going to have high hazards, places where we're going to have chemicals. And I ran across this several times, is where swimming pool applications. Swimming pool applications have a lot of chemicals. So we're looking at the chlorine and how it can discolor and corrode the metals around it. One of the big things I learned a long time ago, and this came from learning experience, we had an electric strike that we put in a pool area, and it corroded. Literally within the warranty time frame of it, it corroded, but I also learned a very important lesson for me as well. And when you're working with some of these different environments you're going to come across, one, you want to have a heavy duty product. The Atoms Rate product is a stainless steel product, which is probably going to be the best product we're going to run into in many applications. But oftentimes I want to tell the customer, this product is only going to give you a couple of years, because it will have corrosion issues over time. Whether it's aesthetically unappealing to it, whatever, it's going to have some kind of issues. But many of those different chemicals out there will create a corrosive environment that we have to consider. So here again, considering the applications, when we get into something that's high hazard, we get into chemicals, even pool and chlorine, industrial areas, places where it's going to be heavy duty. If I've got a heavy duty steel frame mortise lock set, I know I'm going to work to install it, because I'm going to have to deal with the mortise behind the frame. I'm going to have to deal with the solenoid, the external solenoid that's there. And keep in mind, not all the solenoids go up. Oftentimes I'm going to deal with the solenoid going up in a steel or metal frame, but if I come across a wood frame and I need to install one of the Folger Atom strikes in a wood frame, we do have some of the solenoids will go straight through the back. They go out the back, so I can literally drill a 1-inch hole in through the wood, and the solenoid slides into that hole inside the back. Applications is important. Understanding where we're going to put it. Well, let's kind of take a look somewhere else as well. Here I have an exterior fence. Nice, clean workmanship. Everything looks great. I've got a bar across the door. The bar is across the door because of the number of people that'll be exiting out of it. They put some nice fencing around the side of it. They kind of put a protective grate around it here. I got my electric strike mounted my frame, but they did one thing that I did not care for. And actually, they forgot about it. Either they forgot about it, or the customer was too frugal to spend the money to do it, and that is to put a collar around it. The next one I want to show you here quickly is this one right here. So this one came up because it was at my granddaughter's school. So I went to my granddaughter's school to pick her up one day, and they had this nice, they built a new fence. They put a electrified access control on the fence here, but they at the time did not have a collar around it. I didn't even think about taking a picture of it at the time, but there was no collar around this exit bar. So I went and I was talking to the vice principal at the office, and I was showing her, talking about, hey, you need to look at getting this fixed. And she couldn't understand why. And I went out and I showed her, said, hey, will you come out with me for a minute? So I took her out there, and I went from the back of my truck and I pulled out a rope and I threw it over the fence, and I pulled it out the other end, and I just kind of tugged on it nice and gently, and the door popped open. And she's like, I see the problem. So when I went back the next time to pick her up, they had actually had the contractor come out and put a collar around it. So if you're going to work on access controlling perimeter fencing, you have to consider you need a collar that's going to sit around it. Very important things that are important when it comes to professionalism and workmanship and doing it right. So here's another one. On this one here I've got an electric strike which was cut into a box, which was cut into a post. Most of the time we want to be working with a minimum of a 3-inch post if we can. But on this one here, I really want to point out the actual door stop on the back here. We never want our hardware to be the stop. When you're having your hardware being the stop, you're going to put excessive impact points to it, and it's going to create damage to it over time. And this, you want to keep in mind this, and I tell my technicians, if you're going out to look at damaged hardware, you want to take a look at the door operator as well. The door operator, if the door operator is not working correctly and it allows that door to constantly slam on it, it is going to damage our hardware. So a door stop right here is critical. I want the impact to kind of come into that door stop. Then I'm going to have my latching for my latch into my strike after that point, so I do not damage my strike. Here I have another one. This is at a swimming pool here, and the door stop is actually right here on the door itself. It's welded on here, and it allows it to come in conjunction with when the door closes. I'm going to get my initial catch here, and then it's going to allow my latch to slide into my electric strike without giving me the impact on the electric strike itself. Paying attention to details, professionalism. We want our workmanship to work for a long time. Making sure we have the partners that can do this work so it is clean, it's done professionally, and it's going to last. The last thing I want to talk about is our Smartpak. So if you've been in my classes before, you've heard me talk about the Smartpak and how important it is. On this electric strike right in here, this is our HES 1006. My solenoid is sitting right behind my keeper here. And sometimes we get complaints about the keeper will become warm to the touch. So the Smartpak 3 is a very simple add that can be added to any solenoid driven device up to 750 milliamps. Purpose is to be able to reduce the pressure to the solenoid. Most strikes would think about it. We send electricity to the strike for a few seconds. It activates the strike for 5 or 6, 7 seconds, and then it releases it. But sometimes we put an electric strike or electrified lever set or even electrified mortise lock into a timed function. In the timed function, that means we're sending electricity to it for a long period of time from, let's say, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The electricity that's going in to energize the solenoid at that time is basically going to warm up the solenoid. So if you've ever touched an electrified lever set, it might be warm to the touch, electrified mortise lock, warm to the touch. With my electric strike, right behind my keeper, it's going to become warm to the touch. The Smartpak, by adding it into the circuit, will reduce the pressure by 25%. So this guy here, my HES 1006 is going to draw 250 milliamps to work to actually pull the solenoid. When I put it into a timed function, well, it could draw 250 milliamps, but when I take and I add my Smartpak here in conjunction with it, I'm going to take that 250 milliamps and drop it down to about 160 milliamps, reducing the pressure to the solenoid, reducing any warming that could come to my keeper. It also has built into it a bridge rectifier, and this has become really handy to gate people. So if we think about building an exterior gate that might be access controlled, a lot of times you'll have an exterior utility outlet at the exterior gate. Well, the Smartpak has a built-in bridge rectifier which converts AC to DC right there in the field. The gate people have found out how to use that and put it in line. It gives them that easy conversion from AC to DC right there out there in the field in their boxes, nice and secure, easy to work with. Built-in surge suppression, built-in MOV metal oxide resistor designed to stop kickback. When you send electricity to a strike or a mag lock or a certain product that hits a strike and it wants to bounce back to something, the metal oxide resistor stops that kickback and protects some of the equipment sitting behind it. Talk about a very simple and easy add. If you're replacing a strike continuously over and over and over again because it's burning out, consider putting a Smartpak in series with it. It works with not only our strikes and our lever sets and mortise lock sets. You may have to cut off the ends and get the proper connection on it, but it works with anybody's strike that is solenoid driven. As long as it's under 750 milliamps. So if you have questions about it, use the tech support app, call us and talk to us. I will tell you, it does not work with a motor-driven device. We are coming into a time frame where now we have our very first motor-driven electric strike. It will not work with that. We have had the EcoFlex from Sargent for many years. It is a motor-driven electrified mortise lock set. It will not work with that. But we can work with, in many applications, up to 750 milliamps of power going through it. Let's talk just quickly talk about tools. Tools are so important. When you're cutting in an electric strike, you're not going to have, there's no 1, 2, or 3 tools that are always going to work. Over my years, I've used the jigsaw, I use the oscillating tool, standard, the max saw, tools that you can buy from off the shelf at Home Depot or Lowe's or Harbor Freight or Ace Hardware. Oftentimes these tools are very common off the shelf, but you can also get different jigs. We have jigs for our electric strikes if you're going to cut in many of our HES strikes. If you have to mount a surface mount our electric strikes, we've got a jig for that. If you're going to work with Storefront aluminum, there are other jigs that are available from other manufacturers. Major manufacturers, one of the favorites of mine when it comes to looking at different jigs that are available out there, but you've got others from Precision and a couple of other manufacturers as well. Proper tools are important. If you have the proper tools, it's going to make your technician much more efficient at the work, at what they're doing. We always kind of say is if you don't have the right tools, you're going to lose time. If you're going to lose time, you're going to lose money.